Hello and welcome to Leave the Feed 30 Days of Disconnect. It's day 30. This is it. Yeah, you made it. I'm here with Dylan Huey just to wrap things up. Dylan, welcome back.
You for having me. Thank you for having me. Excited for this last episode. Yeah, I've been listening to all the episodes. They're great. I love them. Very inspiring from every single person. I think what we see is like new perspectives around, topics that were discussed in the book, but actually hearing people talk about it, it's very encouraging, heartwarming to know that, this is a universal, discussion that anyone can understand, whether you're a creator, whether you're someone who's focused on just wellness. There's been so many perspectives on this podcast. I mean, season two, are we doing a season two of it?
I, I think just by the intrigue and creators and the participation, there definitely might be a season two coming. Maybe this will become an annual podcast, but
Love it.
some really awesome themes that came out of this, and we'll just talk briefly about each of them. The five that really stuck out are awareness, authenticity, self-worth, connection, and redemption. I think for the first one, awareness, from the creator standpoint, there's a lot of awareness about boundaries. There's a lot of awareness about their own mental health, what they're creating, how they're creating. And I think the conversations that we had really opened us up to and opened the creators up to just how ever aware they need to be of why they're doing what they're doing. Like, what is the why behind what they're doing?
Course. I mean, it's so funny that you bring this up because I think I learned at a really early age when I was 16 about how valuable and how important the following is, right? I always give a circumstance. It might be actually be at the end of the book. I talk about this where a mother comes up to my mom and I and says that my content saved their daughter's life, right? And I think that, views are great and likes are great and comments are great, and we become an economy where we're so factioned on what is the number, how many views are you getting, that's how you're going to get paid out, what's the CPM based off of the views, right? You know this, James. It's the marketing world. And at the end of the day, it's like, every person behind a like, there's a person behind it. Every comment, there's a person behind it, right? The impact to really understand who you're influencing, who you're making a difference into, who you're changing their life for. I think that that's so cool, but also it puts a lot of power in your hand. When I started to reach, the first question I asked anyone was, what do you do beyond social media, beyond USC to make a difference and an impact in your community? Because I understood that like your following mattered. It had a meaning to it. And just the aspect of really understanding that you're building something just much more than just making money off of content, much more than making great content, which I love. I love great content. Great content's great content, but the community that you're curating, you're bringing people together around a central topic of entertainment. Those are very powerful. And the average creator doesn't realize that as they're growing. They realize that, as they're building even larger. And the creators that get it. And I think that that's been so pivotal to really see that change. I think, that was an understanding very early on in the creator space when I was on Musically back in the day was, I love the creator space, and I loved the part where I could go up to a creator, why did you start making content, right? And the answers that I got were powerful. They were, I'm getting bullied. I was getting bullied, or I was suicidal, and this was my escape, was to find other people. I think we've turned the creator space into a very lucrative economy. I mean, you have to turn something into an economy, but just the aspect of, social media at the beginning, and now we can still continue to build that momentum where your following matters, but also the creator matters, and why they started making content in the first place. For a lot of individuals, is this a form of self-expression. That is so powerful. I mean, that's more than just your following. It's more than just you.
And one of the tension points that came up within all of that, especially with the self expression and the entertainment, is that there's such a performative nature to social media that to stay grounded in authenticity seems to be an ongoing challenge. Is how do I stay true to myself, especially with that growth?
Yeah, I mean, you can be algorithm focused and focus on getting views, or you could focus on how can you build content that's sustainable to you, right? And not to say that algorithm focused creators are doing it wrong, but they might not be focused on the larger truth, which is do they actually love doing what they're doing? And in my opinion, you should always do what you enjoy doing. And if you don't enjoy doing it, find something else to do that you're gonna really be passionate about, right? But I think, like I said, we've turned into an economy where sometimes that's overshadowed, overlooked. And I think it's important for us to be grounded as you get to 1 million followers, as you get to 5 million followers, and now you're starting to think a little bit more about the algorithm. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it because young Dylan, when he was 14 years old, getting bullied in middle school and wanted to find a place where other people could relate to him, and he was live streaming for 5 hours a day, every single day for 3 years straight. Is that why I'm doing content? Am I doing content because I know it's going to make me a lot of money? Like, what are the wider truths of why I'm still in it, and who am I, and who am I to others? What am I instilling? What are the the messages that I'm sharing to other people? Is it that, I'm this luxurious, grander, larger than life character, or is it, 14-year-old Dylan, like I said, young, getting bullied, and really understanding like what was your mission? I always tell creators like always understand your why and then build from there. But if you don't understand why you're making content and why you're doing what you're doing, then nothing will mean anything to what you're building.
Yeah, it really ties into the value equation of the economy, understanding that why, because a lot of creators really struggled with self worth and they started really young. They got tied to the metrics, they got tied to the numbers, they got tied to the growth, they got tied to the money. And all of a sudden, they lost sight of who they are. And in that self worth, what is it beyond the numbers? And how do we make sure that the numbers don't dictate our purpose in this world and what we bring into this world?
100%. 100%. No, I completely agree.
And then another huge theme out of this is obviously connection. Social media for you, I mean, it was a place to grow a community. And like you said earlier in the show, you said, someone comes up to you, say, save my child's life, and the power of that connection. But, so many creators that we've talked to have said, man, like I feel like I know so many people, but I actually don't feel like I have any friends. And that can be really sad when you have such a powerful network and community, yet you still feel somewhat alone when you do log off the screen.
Yeah, I mean, the honest truth is that the creator space for a long time has been a very self-isolating industry. You're making TikToks in your bedroom. Like, who are you collaborating with, right? When you're making a movie, when you're making a song, you're collaborating with songwriters, producers, all of that stuff. When you're making a movie, you're collaborating with producers, directors, other actors. I mean, I don't know any successful movies that's a one-person movie. So I think that, that perspective is very different, right? We're making content, but to who? For who? With who? Right? And I think that that's been very unique. And for me, that's why I built Reach. Right? It's because I wanted to build a community where people passionate about social media and content creation can come together, learn from each other, collaborate with each other, and really grow. I'm so fortunate to watch and witness other people starting to build communities like this, like Reach. My mother started the Bay Area Creator Economy, which is a creator network across the Bay Area. My good friend started Creator Economy NYC, Brett Deshevsky. There are lots of groups coming up and populating where they are focused on in-person experiences because it is such a self-isolating industry. And I think at the same time, like, yes, connection's important. For me, I was fortunate enough to build my following around connection, but a lot of other creators just built it off of self-identity and posting content and not interacting with their comment section, not interacting with their fans, right? And I think that that's a whole different world that I was never a part of because I always made it fan-centric, fan-focused. For me, when I hang out with creators all the time, my last thing I want to ask them is what they do for a living. I want to get to know them for who they are. What are their hobbies? What are they passionate about? What is their family? Who is their family? All that stuff. The things that, that you don't typically ask because it's such a transactional environment here in the creator space.
Yeah, and that self-isolation, that idea about making content that's about me, what we also heard was, this next iteration of social media is very redemptive. And that means that less about showing off what I'm doing and more about how do I add value to people's lives? How do I create a space where people can have the community and security and the growth and the networking that you enabled? More of that and less of the performative nature of self. And to hear creators all seeing the need to push social media in that direction, and that this can be a really peaceful, calm, loving, supportive place. And that's where we need to get to with this was really inspiring to hear.
I mean, that sounds like a Justin Loosener answer. I feel like that came out of Justin's mouth. No, I mean, I completely agree. I think I agree with that sentiment 100%. And I think value-based content is is a great direction that we're starting to see. Alex Hermosi, and we have even LinkedIn as a platform is starting to take rise. That's why I think it's a Justin answer, because I mean, LinkedIn as a platform is a very value-based platform, right? You're not posting about your face and your photo, and you go into a movie premiere, you're posting, how can I help other people? This is things that I learned, right? And that's a lot of those LinkedIn creators. That's how they start their prompts is, this is what I learned about blah blah. This is what I learned about B2B sales and stuff like that, right? It's very value focused, and I think that people want to follow. In the past, we looked at an industry where it's people want to follow people that they can relate to. I think that's still a common trend, but I think it's also people want to follow people who they can learn from as well, right? So we think that those are, how the tides are changing and just evolving in this creator landscape.
So we talked about awareness, we talked about authenticity, self-worth, connection, and redemption. Pushing all of those aside, how do we continue to find balance inside of this digital quagmire? As we're getting pushed further and further into new technologies, how can we make sure that we preserve our humanity?
Yeah, that's a great question. You read, leave the feed. You do. No, I think that there's a lot of things. I think, at the end of the day, you need to constantly, learn about who you are, right? And understand what you're building, why you're building it, and how you're building it. Yeah, I think everyone wants to say that they're building something cool, right? Everyone wants to build something dope. Whether you're working at Amazon and you're trying to, work on, building up a new product at Amazon, or, if you're an entrepreneur and building up, a whole new product, everyone wants to build something cool. But, at the same time, in a world where we are trying to build in a very competitive landscape, where everyone's, a builder, everyone's a doer. How can you remember why you're building what you're building? How are you going about doing it? Is it ethical? Right? I think ethics is a massive, massive part. Right. And I think, taking a step back, and I think this is the epitome of leave the feed is take a step back. Take a step back and understand, what you're building and why you're building it, because that makes it not only beneficial for everyone else, right? Because you can share your mission, but it grounds you. It allows you to remember, why am I even doing this in the first place, right? In days where things get hard, here at Reach, at the Reach company, days are always hard for Dylan as a CEO to figure out how to make payroll. Right? How am I going to pay my employees? And days like that, which is today, it's a constant reminder of, why am I even doing this? Why am I building what I'm building? And for me, why I'm building what I'm building is because I want to build a place where creators actually feel protected, supported, and helped. For Leave the Feed, why did we build Leave the Feed? Right? It was to really show others that that this entire sense of relationship is more than just what we think. It's more than it's larger than life. It's more than a touch the grass movement. It's a whole mantra that you should be following, right? So understanding why we're building what we're building is important for us to really understand that we want to be building what we're doing, right? At the end of the day, you could stop tomorrow. We could stop the Leave the Feed podcast tomorrow, but no, people want to see this Leave the Feed podcast go up. Why do they want to see the Leave the Feed podcast go up? Because they want to hear stories of other people, of people like you and I, who are sharing insights that they can be like, I relate to this, or I was at that point, or these are things that I think are going to be beneficial to my life, to my career, to how I want to build myself up. Maybe it is taking a step back from being on social media, right? And Leave the Feed inspired you to do that. And it's such an individual thing. It's an individual concept and notion.
Very well said. So insightful, so inspiring. This whole season has been full of essential knowledge and wisdom, and to learn how disconnecting to reconnect and the ethos of Leave the Feed means something different to everyone, but it's all something that we can relate to has been incredible. Thank you so much for being part of this, Dylan.
Love it. I mean, I think the entire movement of what we're trying to build here at Leave the Feed is, I always say this because it's true, but it's ever more important today, right? And it's going to be ever more important tomorrow as well, which is very paradoxical. But I think the entire sentiment is that if you want to, really build yourself up, if you want to change your own life, there's never a better day to start than today, right? And for me, and what I tell everyone, because people ask me all the time, they're like, how do you be the best in social media? Right? And I tell them the same answer, which is relevant to anything that you're doing. Start today. You'll think that you're going to start tomorrow, but start today. Build the groundwork today. Because if you're building yourself up constantly and building yourself 1% every single day, you're going to constantly get better and you're going to reach your goal, right? If your goal is to make $1 million, right? Let's use a very figurative thing that's money related, even though we've been talking about non-money concepts the entire time. But if your goal is to get $1 million, getting 1% of $1 million every single day for the next 1 year will get you to your goal, right? And you can tangibly take it into baby steps every single day, right? A larger goal is easier to accomplish if you can soundbite it into smaller, more tangible, accomplishable goals that you can actually do, right? And that I think is the power of what we're building here at Leave the Feed is helping you get to your goals, right? We're not going to tell you how to make $1 million, but we will tell you how to reconnect with yourself, how to reconnect with others, how to reconnect with your friends, family, with nature and the environment. And these are things that I think are the most important is your relationships.
And lastly, I just want to give a special thanks to you and also all the creators that were on the show. I think when I started Leave the Feed, many years ago, it was about the challenges with social media. And what we've really found working with all these creators is that balance point between social media as a challenge and social media as the opportunity, and for everyone to figure out where they fit within that equation. And because of these creators, it just continues to warm my heart how many wonderful platforms there are out there that help so many people, and how social media is something that we have to continue to nurture, continue to protect creators, and make sure that everyone can find peace and prosperity inside the creator economy. So thank you so much, Dylan.
Of course, I love it. I mean, like I said, we'll be back.
Well, thank you to everyone listening, and stay tuned for the next season. We look forward to it.